much during the spring break. Yeah, so but I think I missed the last meeting. So Julian, could you please tell me I mean how far have you gone? I mean
Right. So the last meeting, in the last meeting, Jillian presented the work that he'd done with Julian presented the work he did with React. Which was, Julian, do you like to summarize for Steve?
Right. Basically, I just kind of went through the docs, like the first part where they talk about like the main components of React and how it works.
Yeah.
Most importantly, things like what are props and what are state and how inheritance works and just kind of how to think of things in a React kind of way.
Okay. So do you like it? Or, yeah.
I think I'll have to like try it out more to really get a feel for whether I like it or not. But
okay,
it seems like a decent way of organizing things, especially when they can like change and you have to like display it several times.
Okay.
On like a web page, so I think it's alright.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. John. So Julie will I mean join our team, right?
Julian is joining.
Not Julian. Not Julian. I mean
Adi.
Andy.
Adelaide and Adi for short.
Adi. Okay. Sorry.
ADE.
AD
is for short. Okay.
AD. So yeah. So Eddie will join us. I mean.
Yes, Eddie's going to be doing several things with Build It Yourself this summer, but she's double majoring in CS and political science. But so she'd like to sit in on our Invention Universe meetings, and maybe after the summer get even more involved.
Okay, great.
On a 1 hour a week basis. Yeah. Okay.
So let me see. So Julia, have you joined our GitHub team? So
yeah, I accepted the invite.
Okay, so I will share my screen.
Julian, while Steve's setting up, do you remember there was one session when Steve was traveling and we talked about the wish list, all the features we want to add. Did I send you a summary of that?
I feel like you did. Let me go through my email really quickly.
Okay. I've been trying to find that email and I can't find it. My email box is overloaded and it's taking forever to search. I gotta back things up.
Yeah, okay, I found it. I can forward it to you if you want.
Would you please? Thank you.
Did we lose Steve?
All right, there it is.
Okay, great. Hold on. We did lose Steve.
Oh, maybe his connection's not that great.
Yeah. Thank you. I registered, Steve, that you your internet broke.
No, actually, my Windows crashed again. Sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. Okay, thanks for calling. Okay, while we're waiting for Steve, I'm just gonna share this with, share my screen. So the wish list is, Invention Universe rebuild using, so the basic idea is the first version of Invention Universe was done in Flash back in 2009. So we're basically rebuilding it to be, non-flash, HTML5, and responsive to different platforms. And so that's why we also want to put it under a framework so it's executes better, easier to edit, yada, yada, yada. And we want to evolve our navigation and graphics. And then thirdly, third is graphics, enable member interaction. That's what we talked about, the social media features. And then 5 is follow regulations for privacy. There's a lot of rules about what kids can and what you can and can't do if you're addressing kids. And then we want to gamify Julian's. Julian grows up, he wants to be a game designer.
Yes.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, I'm sorry I missed some of that. My computer was having audio issues.
Yeah, no problem. Steve is that same problem. So, Kate, say hello to Julian and Adi, who's here.
Hi.
Hello.
Julian and Adi are both at MIT, and Kate's CS at Cornell. Kate is,
Sorry, I'm trying to see if I can turn some lights on. I don't know why it's so dark.
good. Okay, we're just going over, Kate, the wish list while Steve reboots his computer.
Okay.
So our big picture wish list functionality, we want to make Invention Universe as computer game-like as possible. A point system, maybe. Every time you post a project, you get certain points. Every time you look at someone else's planet, you get a point.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing. We want to encourage kids to come back and use it and stay on as long as possible. And maybe we have a point system. And then the rewards, they could be, like money you can use in our shop, buy tools, parts, tools, and supplies. It could be just, we have a vision of making rewards being rocket ships. So the bigger the more you're involved in Invention Universe, the more rockets you have.
Okay,
it's like your collection of cars, your collection of rockets. Okay, sorry, Steve, we were just going over your wish.
We don't get crashed.
Okay, so now we have two, Kate and Adi, who haven't, maybe really need to start from the ground level on React. How do you want to handle that? I hate to drag Julian through repetitive, everyone up to where he is.
I actually just wanted to mention something. While you were talking about gamifying Invention Universe and having like a kind of point system.
Yep.
There is this game that I used to play all the way back when I was like a lot younger on the internet. And basically it was called dragcave.net. And the idea is you would get a dragon egg and people would have to click it for it to hatch and then grow up.
Cool. Kind of like Spore, no?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But it was exclusively based on people looking at what you were what you're doing and like clicking on it and then helping you grow. And then you would reciprocate by clicking on their things.
Great.
So basically it was just a really cool way to get people interested in what other people were doing.
Fantastic, Julian. So those are the kinds of new functionality we want to add to Invention Universe. And so that's the top down. And now Steve's trying to get everyone up to speed on the bottom up tools we're going to use. So Steve, should we give a little introduction to React, or maybe Julian, do you mind sharing what your impressions of React are and the key things or the exercises?
I'd like Julia to do this. Introduction. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Basically, let me just try to open the React doc so I can get a quick refresh.
Let me stop sharing my screen so you can share your screen.
go. Share screen.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, Julian. So could you please, introduce the JavaScript first? So I think not all of us have some experience on JavaScript, right?
Okay, yeah. I'll just open.
Is that true, Kate and Adi, on JavaScript?
I think opposite.
Okay. Kate?
I have a little bit of experience in it, but not much.
Okay. All right.
I'm kind of,
Doesn't
yeah,
hurt.
In this case.
kind of in the same boat as you, Kate, at least. Like, I did have some experience with it, but I never really got around to doing too much. But basically, I kind of consider JavaScript to be like the standard language because it's like logic and stuff like that, and the way the syntax, the way you have to write everything is really similar to basically everything else.
Okay.
You define immediate variables, right? Like this, you assign values, you can compute them pretty easily. The arithmetic operators are the same. You can add strings together just like you can anywhere else. Comments are // it's case sensitive, camel case. And then like, let's say functions. You basically just say function, the function define your arguments, and then open bracket, close bracket, and inside you put in whatever you wanted to return.
Okay.
Invoking the function, pretty straightforward. You just do the open parentheses, close parentheses. The only difference is that because JavaScript is for web development, some things will automatically invoke it, other things won't. But that's kind of more of a React.js thing. Yeah.
Okay. Great, Julia. So I just want to add a comment. So W3 Schools is a good place for us to learn web development, and the JavaScript tutorial here is also very good. So I just want to share another place we can learn JavaScript. So sorry, I will put it.
Should we take notes here?
I will
Take,
chat. Okay. I just send it in the chat box to in the group chat.
okay.
Yeah. So please just click this. Open this link, and I think this MDN place is also a very good place to find useful tutorial and help. And this article, a reintroduction to JavaScript. This one is a very good article to, introduce JavaScript to programmers. Yeah. Okay, please go on, Julian. Thank you.
Yeah. To add in methods, it's a little bit weird, but basically when you have an object, you kind of define its variables using this kind of syntax. To me in Python, this is just a dictionary, but it's actually how you define objects. And in addition, it's how you would define a method, because over here you can just put in a function as a property value and just have that be returned. And remember that semicolons are very important on this because JavaScript does care about that. And to access a variable, you can just do dot last name or the index into the string last name. And very similar thing works with methods. Yeah, when you declare anything with new, the variable gets created as an object, and you don't really need to make like number, string, or Boolean objects, so kind of just make your own custom objects. Use it to import it. Scope is pretty simple. You have local scope inside functions and then global scope outside. There are a lot of HTML events that can be done. So yeah, this, I believe I'm not too familiar with this. Okay, whatever the question mark is, I think it'll get replaced by whatever this is. or more specifically, we try it out. The time is, okay, no, it says this because it passes in the date. And that's because this is labeled demo. It's like its own little HTML thing about like a paragraph. And then this finds the demo, replaces it with date. And then when you hit, that only happens when you hit the button because this is the on click thing. On change is whenever something gets changed, like a text box. On click, it's pretty self-explanatory. Mouse over, mouse out is pretty self-explanatory. On key down is when you push the key, and I believe it's only once when you push it. If you keep holding it, it doesn't change anything. On load, not used too often, but it's basically when the browser finishes loading the page. Strings, self-explanatory. There are a handful of string methods that you can just look up, but index of and things like that are useful for handling text. That's about it. I guess type conversion is kind of important. Type of will return the type of something. And constructor returns the constructor function of any variables or whatever you define. So basically, if you wanted to figure that out, you can, like if you wanted to find out if an object is an array, the constructor contains the word array, which if you want to do it like a really roundabout way of doing it. The easiest way to do it is check if the object is an array function. Likewise, you can do the same thing to find out if something is a date, or check if the object is a date function. String will turn numbers into strings. ToString is exactly the same thing, but it's like a method built in. You've got other things here. Booleans can be turned into strings. Dates can be turned into strings, which is useful to display anything. Strings can be turned into numbers. JavaScript does not care about whether it's an int or a float or anything. It's all a number to it. Plus converts a variable into a number. So like if y is 5 and you do plus y, that just becomes now 5. If it can be converted, it becomes NaN, which is how JavaScript says not a number. So that's kind of like the main thing you want to test for to make sure you haven't crashed. Dates can be turned into numbers, times can be turned into numbers, that kind of thing. And what React basically does is it gets all that kind of functionality of JavaScript and lets you use it better for updating things and, you know, doing a lot of cool things depending on what elements are rendered and when anything is pressed and whatnot. So in React, you typically put in something like React DOM.render, and then this is what ends up getting rendered. So this code as it is right here will just say hello world. And you can put anything else you want here, but you want to put div tags around it if you're familiar with HTML, because it only takes in like one thing. So it's worth noting that an HTML code counts as a value in React, which you can just pass around. React elements are all immutable. And like you can see here, if you just set element as like a constant equal to this thing, and you just make it render the element, the whole thing will show up, including the date. Because React.js is smart about when it updates everything, so it only updates things on the React screen if it changes. As you can see from this little GIF here. Props is a way that it takes in data for anything. Like let's say this function welcome, you wanted to pass in something. You would first of all pass in props, and then whatever you would give it would be basically a new JavaScript object, like with the curly braces. But basically, you would have to say like name equals Sarah here. You would call it as if it was an HTML5 tag, except that you would make the thing be welcome because this is welcome, and everything following it is counted as props. So just saying name equals Sarah, that's passed in as props, and then you look up props.name. Likewise, you can do the same thing that does it many times with Sarah Kahal Edit, and as you can see, it pops up as Sarah Kahal Edit. This one's a little interesting because it calls app here as render, and the app is a function that will return this, and then each one of these are functions that return HTML5, so it can compound like that, and it's fine. Yeah, you can, in fact, this one passes in many things and has all sorts of different divs and stuff like that. In order to change it, you can split it up into a lot of smaller things. So like get rid of basically the same kind of thing as modularity as you would in any other programming language, but it's a little weirder in React because there's like strict inheritance and things get passed down, but they can't get passed up very easily. So you have to be careful about what you make the parent of something else. So by extracting avatar, you can turn this into this. By extracting user info, you can turn that into that, and little by little, everything gets simpler. Also, anything can't modify its own props. And all React components must act like pure functions with respect to their props, in the sense that they don't actually change their own, they can't change their own input, is basically how it goes. Like we said, there's a lot of like automatic lifecycle things that happen.
Oh, hold on, Julian.
Sorry, do you mind if I interrupt you really quick? Sorry, going back to the example that you had with the why it can't change its own inputs, for that, would you just like create a new variable then and then change the variable instead of changing something that was directly passed into it?
Basically, whenever you've called a function and you pass something into it, that's it. Like you have to live with whatever you just passed in.
Oh.
So the idea is update whenever anything changes, because you can just call the function again with a different thing, and that's completely fine. But you can't like pass in like 2 and have it change that variable into like a 3.
Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And about that, like as you can see, this kind of just sets the interval of the whole thing to update every 1,000 milliseconds. And what this will do is every 1,000 milliseconds, date will change, and React.js is smart enough to know it has to update everything again. So it does so. That's kind of the long and short of it. Events are activated with, instead of doing this as you would in HTML, in React, you just make like an object for it. And typically you make something like this called onClick, just point to handle click, and then you can do all your stuff here. The important thing is E is called a synthetic event, and this is something a little complicated, but basically React automatically passes in a default like event that kind of happens, if that makes sense, and you have to override it, because if not, it'll do the HTML5 thing and do nothing. So in this case, you want to do prevent default and then do whatever it is that will normally happen. This is something I don't fully understand, but sometimes you have to bind this correctly, because React.js is kind of like a framework that goes on top of JavaScript, and not everything works as it should. So in order for handle click to be able to say this and mean handle click, you have to rebind this, because if not, it'll think it's still the higher level thing, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah, for this part, because
Steve, we lost you. Can you say again?
Oh, I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he's from.
Okay, continue, Julian. Back in.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, the constructor gets automatically called whenever you call a class. You just have to make a method literally called constructor. And I believe saying super props means it gets the props from the thing above it, which would be the general toggle object. So if you're going to define this handle click, this will be undefined because class methods aren't bound by default. Okay, that's a little strange. There's other ways to go around that, but let's not get into that. The coolest thing is that you can specifically render some things depending on certain variables. So if you just have an is logged in thing, and you can say like the greeting has the props. Let me just open this because it's a good example. So it says please sign up because React.render, it creates a greeting where is logged in is false. So the props contains false. Sorry, here, the props contains false. It sets is logged in equal to whatever the props is, dot is logged in. If it is logged in, it returns this. If it's not logged in, it returns that. And it basically just says, welcome back or please sign up. You still have to do the little props thing if it's being called from somewhere, even if there's no actual props. Basically, if I go ahead and I set this to true, you'll notice that it changes to welcome back because now it knows is logged in is equal to true. So it returns a user greeting where it says welcome back. Yeah. You can use variables to store elements. So something like this, for the record, you can have the question mark syntax if you're familiar with that, where basically instead of doing if this, then something else, something, you can just say something, question mark, put something that happens if true, colon, something that happens if it's false. So basically, login control is now in charge of all this. It'll set the state correctly depending on whether login is clicked, whether logout is clicked. And then this just in one shot will represent whether to do a logout button or a login button and what function to do on the click. So if you're logged out, on click, this should handle clicking on logout. And if you're logged in, on click, this should handle clicking login. Basically, this works as you would imagine. But it does have quite a bit of cool things going on. Is there like a motor revving up on around
my
here?
computer has a really loud fan. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure.
Nah, don't worry about it. If Steve is still off the grid, I guess I'll keep going.
Yeah. Professor Julian, doing good.
Sure, cool.
Is this useful, Kate and Adi, what Julian's going over, a refresher on JavaScript?
Oh, well, now this is a React, right?
React, JavaScript.
React, yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm a little confused though, like how the two, how the two are exactly connected. Because like up until this point, it seemed to be more like HTML than anything.
Yeah, no, it's like basically JavaScript is its own kind of like scripting language with its own like rules and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What React does is it kind of is a mod of JavaScript, if you will.
Okay.
Like it builds on top of it.
Yeah, it's like a library. Yeah.
Yeah, but because of that, it tries to do a lot of things, and JavaScript isn't always ready to catch up. So some of the things are a little weird, like, you have to rebind this and stuff like that, like we talked about. But basically, one of the coolest things about React is it lets you just use HTML, like lines of code or markup or whatever, as a variable.
Okay.
Which is something you can't do in regular JavaScript, which lets you do all the things I showed you with conditional rendering and whatever.
Sorry, my computer, I don't know why it keeps crashing today. So let's go back to that question. So this keyword, right, Julian? Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, this keyword is, refers to the global, object, the global context. So which means if we call a function, this means how to, I will share my screen, so it will
Okay, let me stop sharing mine.
Okay. Okay. So when you have some questions like this, so please use, this developer DOM Zola.org. So MDN, so actually, if we define a function, so like return this, so we can change this context, like the easiest way to, okay, here. So the bind is actually, so everything in JavaScript is function, is object. So actually function is another type of object. So it has this, bind method. So which means if we use it, so like this function returns this dot a, so return. So now if we bind the function to another object, right? So in this context, so we will, output this dot a equals this, right? And if we bind it to another object, so it will, this function will run in this, in another context. So which means in React, why we need to use a bind this to make, because we want to make sure that function is running under the right context. But also if we can use new syntax arrow function. So if we use that, we can just ignore the bind this line. I don't know if I explained clearly, but if you just can Google this JS and MDN and find this tutorial.
Yeah, it's just a little weird.
Yeah. Yes. And another thing, Julian, so could you please tell us your debug process? How you debug your code?
Right. There's actually like a page that has to do with that here. So let me just share the screen again.
Okay, sure.
For React, debugging gets a lot easier when you try to think about how things get passed down. Basically, when you're asked to like make something, if you just kind of if you just try to do it all at once or however, without thinking about it, you're almost inevitably going to run into a lot of problems, some of which aren't really bugs as much as just things that can't be fixed because that's not how React works. So the first thing to do is kind of break things down into a hierarchy. So for this example, you would have a handful of things. And if you kind of think about it as a hierarchy, you can end up with something like this. It's really similar to how like classes inherit things from other classes. The easiest thing to do is to then come up with a static version of the thing, which does not do anything special, but just so you make sure you have everything in the right order. Like they said, building a static version has a lot of typing and no thinking, and then adding interactivity is a lot of thinking and not a lot of typing. So it's good to do them one at a time. React does have something called one-way data flow, which means things basically exclusively go from top to bottom, never from bottom to top. If you have the official React docs here, you can see that, what am I doing? Oh yeah. The weird thing is there's something called props and there's something called state, and they're both kind of different. Basically, props are, we already talked about things being passed down and everything, but state, I believe, if it ever shows up here, is something that a function can define for itself. So like, you can just set inside the constructor, make a state where date is the new date. It's again a JavaScript object, but it's allowed to define it for itself. And if you remember that props are immutable and can't be changed. So typically you want props to be called down and state to be things if you want to keep track of something within itself. If you think about all the pieces of data in the original example application to figure out what you should use state for in order to minimize the amount of debugging you'll end up having to do later. If it's passed in from a parent, it's not state. If it's unchanged, it's not state. And if it can be computed based on anything else, it isn't state, because it's much easier to just compute it like that. You want to keep state to a minimum because it's rather difficult. So state would be the search text the user has entered and the value of the checkbox, basically, in this case. Original list of products is passed down, the search text, the checkbox are state, but the filtered list of products isn't state because you can just combine the thing together. And basically, you want state to be stored in the highest level thing that everything that needs the state shares. So product table has to have state, search bar has to have state, so the common owner is filterable product table. So what you want to do is have state be in filterable product table and then pass in whatever is necessary as a product. If you didn't do that, you would have to have a weirder state inside both product table and search bar, which would, if anything went wrong, would make it a bigger pain to debug significantly over just being able to figure out where the shared component is and fixing things from there. And finally, there is some amount of inverse data flow because state has to be updated up as things happen. So typically, let's see. Like to make sure that whenever the form is changed on the search bar, the filterable product table is opened, it passes callbacks to the search bar that fire whenever the state is updated. And on change, be notified basically that anything gets changed. And then the callbacks passed on from the filterable product table will in fact call the set state on the filterable product table. And the app will be updated. That's a little complex to understand, but you can, when you pass in as like props or whatever, you can set like on click set state for something or on change. So then automatically whenever there's a change, the parent object will then begin to change. And if you remember somewhere in the JavaScript, that was a thing. Yeah, like here.
To clarify, the data flow or like the direction of the data flow is like typically when you say like one way, it's like when you say top to bottom, that's like talking about like a hierarchy, right? So then
yeah,
bottom to top is like, okay, like the small stuff moving at the top.
Yeah, top to bottom is typically, it's very easy to make variables go from a parent all the way down to like a very specific child.
Yeah.
But in order for things to go child to parent, you kind of just have to have the parent have a function that gets passed down that listens if there's a change.
Oh, okay.
And then if there is a change, it calls another function in the parent. And there's almost certainly some sort of example here, but there wasn't one on this page.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think I get the gist of it.
Like, so you can be like, input, the value is this, and on change, it's this dot and handle change. And then you can know, what to do there.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Great, Julian. I want to add something on debug processing. So I will share my screen.
Okay. You have it.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing is for web development, we can easily use Chrome or Firefox, like other, browsers to open the console and the development tool. Like this is Chrome, so we can just inspect elements. So like any, web page, it contains HTML5, so we can easily, so have you done this before? I don't know. So if you are interested in any, web page, you can use this way to check their, code, actually, front-end code.
Oh yeah, so, I will just say one thing. If you want to have, to be able to like look at all the React elements really easily, there's like an extension you have to download.
Yeah. I will, yeah, add that later. So So the first thing you need to learn a little about HTML and the CSS. So this is the basic element to build our web page. So this div things is a HTML element, and like we check this. Okay, we can say now it's an image tag here, and it will contain an image file, and it will get it from the source. And also we can change any other, CSS style things. Okay, this is the basic thing. And for debug our JavaScript code, we need to use console. So the basic one is, actually we can write some test code directly in this console, like we can define a variable, and then we can just use console.log to output it. So this another thing is in our JavaScript code we can use debugger, this keyword, and this keyword will make a breakpoint to the in the file. So in this way we can just stop the code, and we can check what's wrong there, and we can use these buttons to like step-by-step test, or we can just resume it. Okay, and yeah, this console.log function or command is very useful for us to debug our code. Like if we wanted to check something, if it is wrong or right, we can use this. And another very useful tool is just like
Excuse me, Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry for a stupid question here. How did you get that debugger screen on Google?
Okay, first thing you just use the Control-Shift+I, or just right click the mouse and open the menu and click inspect, and it will open all this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you put a debugger keyword in your JavaScript code, file, and if you open the inspect menu here, and it will automatically lead you to the debugger. Yeah, here, this here, right? Okay. And another useful tool for debug React is just like Julian said, is let me see. I can just open React. Yeah, now I'm running a simple React project, and okay, here. Okay. So this tool here, React Developer Tools. So it's an extension app for Chrome, and you can just download it and add it to your browser. And if you are running a React project, we can use this. It will automatically add a tab, like a menu here. So in this case, we can check every component in our page. So for this thing, we can check we want to check the testing here. Search. Oh, here. Sorry. Okay, here. So Actually, we will find that it's a this is a custom button. I use launch button, so nothing here. Let's see this. Okay, we can see this link launch, and we can check the props of this component, and also, yeah, this context things will show all the. Julian, do you remember the context part? What it show here? Kind of. Okay, sorry about this. So context thing I forgot. Okay, but using this way, we can check every component and find out the actually their props. The props will contain their property or functions method here. So like this link has an on-click function, but I didn't attach any actual function there. Okay, like this. And okay. Yeah. Do you have anything to something to add, Julia, for this development too?
I have not tried out the React thing on using inspect element personally, so this is more your thing.
Okay, yeah, so please just try it, and I think. I think.
Is that the new what's on the GitHub right now? That launch page or whatever? Because I remember checking the GitHub a long time ago, and all it was is like the default React.js like app thing.
I think we lost Steve again.
Oh no.
Okay, we're nearing the end of the hour here. I don't like to go over just because I know you guys are all busy. But it's helpful if Steve and I have feedback if these sessions are efficient or suggestions on how we can make them more efficient. Kate, is this instructive to you? These weekly sessions?
Yeah, I would appreciate it. Can you send me the website, the link to it you were using?
Adim is making a whole bunch of notes here, and I'm going to add the archive. So I'm going to archive this, put it on YouTube, this meeting.
Okay.
Those who missed the meeting can see not only Addie's notes, but also the archive of the whole session.
Okay. Also, I guess as a note, I wasn't taking comprehensive, so it was mostly things that I didn't know. So there's like a lot of holes when it comes to like JavaScript stuff, because for me that was mostly refreshers, so they're not like
sure.
Sure.
I think we have to assume that everyone has basic JavaScript knowledge. I think we should assume that. Okay. Any parting words?
Sorry.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just trying to wind down and get feedback from Kate and Adi in particular. What's the most efficient way to get everybody up to speed?
My suggestion is just try the tutorial and the examples there.
Yeah.
There is a very simple game example. So after you build this, you will get a
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we making progress by your measure, Steve?
Yeah, and Julian, so I think you can use the GitHub. I put the example there. Not an example, but the main structure of our project. So you can just try it, and you can create a new PR. Like if you want to create new screen here.
Okay.
Yeah, just use the GitHub things, and feel free to create a new pull request.
Yeah, I'll play around with it when I get the chance.
Okay, great, great.
Okay. Unless we have any other suggestions or questions, see you all next week.
See you.
Yeah, see you. Thank you,
Good.
everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Kate, thanks for joining. Steve, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
All right, let's get together for dinner this week, Steve.
Okay, sure. So I will talk to you later. Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Bye.
Steve.
Bye. Yeah. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Kate, any last questions on other matters? We're good?
No, I think so. I should be sending you the email. I know you wanted me to email you a summary of our phone call. And
Yeah, right. Thank you.
yeah, my computer randomly broke last night. So
All right, no problem.
it seems to be working now. So
Good. All right, Kate. See you next week. Or good. Bye.
yep. Bye.
Let me just archive this before my computer crashes. I'll show you that project over there. Yeah, I think you'll be interested. It's a key to. It's our second key big development project.
Oh, okay.
Let me just make sure we get this archived.
Yeah, looks like it's still recording.
Thank you.